in Edmonton. They were very busy. First of all, they signed Jeff Skinner to a one-year, $3 million deal. The 32-year-old was bought out by the Buffalo Sabres, still scored 24 goals for the Sabres last year. The Oilers also signed Viktor Arvidsson to a two-year, $8 million deal. Arvidsson expected to slot in on the wing alongside Leon Draisaitl. Arvidsson's tallied 362 points in 456 regular season games over 10 NHL seasons. The Oilers also re-signed Connor Brown to a one-year, $1 million contract. So Brown sees $3 million drop from his one-year, $4 million deal he signed last season with Edmonton. 30 years old, played terrific for Edmonton in the playoffs, became a real fan favorite. And then the Oilers re-signed, boy, speaking of veterans, 39-year-old Corey Perry entering his 20th career NHL season, one-year, $1.4 million with Edmonton. They also signed standout playoff performer Mattias Janmark to a three-year, $4.35 million deal. They signed Troy Stetcher, 2 years, around $1.5 million. And then late Monday night, Frankie, Jeff Jackson gets Adam Henrique to sign a two-year deal worth $3 million a season. So now you can roll back that Mattias Janmark, Connor Brown, Adam Henrique third line that was so effective in the postseason for Edmonton. Overall, first of all, let's talk about Arvidsson first. I didn't see that coming. Do you like the fit alongside Draisaitl in the top six?
I do like the fit there. Like it's going to allow the Edmonton Oilers to now have Zach Hyman on one line doing what he does, tenacious forechecker, hard to play against, the skill that comes with that. And now you can have Arvidsson, who's cut from a similar cloth as Zach Hyman, playing on a different line, playing with Leon Draisaitl. So it gives you in the top six a little bit of a sandpaper element with some skill, two guys that are hard to play against. It's a nice job by Jeff Jackson, who apparently doesn't want to be the GM, but is doing a really good job of being the GM in his first offseason, Jay.
Boy, has he ever. Then you get Jeff Skinner on a very team-friendly deal, $3 million for one season. Overall, you're basically bringing the band back together and you're adding Arvidsson and Skinner. Overall, what do you think about what Jackson did on Monday?
It's been good. It's been good work because now you bring in Jeff Skinner, who doesn't have to be a $9 million player for you. He just has to be, a $3 million plus player, let's call it. He just has to be good offensively. He doesn't have to do everything that is so encompassing with making $9 million. So now that's a guy that can play in your top six that just needs to give you some offense. Mattias Janmark, good playoff player. Guess where the Edmonton Oilers are going? Every single year that McDavid and Draisaitl are there, they're going to the playoffs. And now Connor Brown, who they would have been paying this year anyways because he hit his performance bonuses from last year. So you might as well pay him a little more to stick around, especially since he had a good playoffs. Like everything the Oilers did or have done really makes sense for that team. So it's been a nice job from Arvidsson to Skinner to Janmark to Henrique, who's a versatile player, plays center, everything that comes with him. Like it's good work by Jeff Jackson and the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, I think the fan base would appreciate if he just stuck around. And according to our Ryan Rashog, the Oilers have not asked Evander Kane to waive his no-trade clause. We'll monitor that situation, but let's check in on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Also very busy. They officially announced the signing of Chris Tanev. They've signed him to a 6-year deal with an AAV of $4.5 billion. Tanev also has a full no-movement clause, and Tanev spoke to our James Duthie about why he signed in Toronto.
A team with elite talent, some of the best players in the world, and they've had a ton of regular season success, and it's been definitely been impressive watching their top-end guys. So, I mean, as far as I'm from here, I grew up here. I grew up in East York, so I'm a Toronto kid, and definitely excited to raise my family here.
Shout out to East York. Toronto also signed Oliver Ekman-Larsson to a 4-year deal with an AAV of $3.5 million. The defenseman had 9 goals and 23 assists last season with the Panthers.
What went into your decision to join Toronto?
No, I just like the group of guys that they have there, and I mean, super excited to be a part of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and yeah, excited about everything. Obviously, it's been busy week here, but I'm super excited to be joining the team.
Toronto also locked up their goaltending tandem, re-signing Joseph Woll to a 3-year deal with an AAV of $3.66 million. And then they also found him a backup. That would be Anthony Stolarz, who just won a cup with the Florida Panthers, backing up Sergei Bobrovsky. 2 years, $2.5 million per year. Stolarz, a .925 save percentage in the Panthers Cup championship season.
Describe your last 48 hours or so and your decision to go to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, it's been quite the experience. In the parade yesterday, and then I was just having to make the decision today to come to Toronto. So I'm super excited about it and looking forward to the opportunity.
And the Leafs signed another former Stars defenseman in Jani Hakanpää. It's a 2-year deal worth $1.5 million per season. He had 12 points in 64 games for Dallas last season. So they got 3 D-men, Frankie. They got a backup goaltender. Overall, if the Leafs go into next season with this roster, are you happy with that?
I'm happy with the back end. They probably still do need to do something up front. Like, you lose Tyler Bertuzzi, and he had a different element that team needed, so you'll have to do something there. But if you just focus on the blue line, it's a pretty impressive day. They completely rebuild it with 3 new defensemen, and it only costs them $9.5 million to do that. Now, term is going to be the sticky thing. You know, Chris Tanev on a 6-year deal, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, that's a lot of term for a guy that's been hurt a lot in his career. But you'll figure out the term after, as long as the dollar figures were good. And that's exactly where the Toronto Maple Leafs went. They get Tanev at $4.5. That's a guy who's going to play with Morgan Rielly on your top pair. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, a guy who can run your first power play unit, give you a different look compared to what Morgan Rielly gives you, who did a really good job, stayed healthy with the Florida Panthers this year. And Jani Hakanpää, a guy who's, you know, he's 3rd pair guy, 7th defenseman, but he's 6'7". So 2 guys that are 6'2", a guy that's 6'7", guy that's going to play in your top pair, guy that can run your power play, all for $9.5 million. I'd say that's pretty good work at rebuilding the blue line for the Leafs.
Frankie, let's check in on what the Canucks did. They signed Jake DeBrusk to a 7-year deal worth $38.5 million. The 27-year-old has spent his entire career with the Bruins. They signed his former Boston teammate Danton Heinen. They signed former Oilers D-man Vinny Desharnais and bottom 6 forward Kiefer Sherwood. DeBrusk spoke about why he chose Vancouver in free agency.
Obviously playing with either Patterson or JT Miller, and just seeing how they took their development next level, I guess, this last coming season. It's a team that's ready to win. It's a team that I know I can come in and help. And also, I know it's a Canadian city that wants to win as well. So, I think that's going into this process. I just wanted to find myself where I can be in a place where I could fit in and help a team win. Vancouver's a team that really pushed hard. I could tell they really wanted me, and it was something that I was just really excited to get done.
So, Frankie, the Canucks never even got a chance to talk to Jake Guentzel. They watched Nikita Zadorov and Elias Lindholm head to Boston. That's always interesting. But for Jimmy Rutherford and Patrick Allvin, they're not done. But do you like what they did pivoting from Guentzel to Jake DeBrusk?
I do, Jay. They would have spent a lot of money on Jake Guentzel. They would have spent a lot of money on Nikita Zadorov. That would have been, a combined $14 million? Instead, they put their focuses elsewhere, and maybe they got more players because of it. So you still get your scoring winger in DeBrusk. You get another winger in Heinen. You go to the back end. You bring in 2 big bodies in Forbort and Desharnais. Exactly the types of players that Rick Tocchet wants back there. So it's a good job by the Vancouver Canucks. And in past years, maybe with a different regime in Vancouver, they would have just spent money just to spend money. There wouldn't have been a ton of purpose behind what they would have done. I felt like there was a lot of purpose behind what Vancouver did today. You got your scoring winger, you got another complementary piece, you got 2 trees on the back end, and instead of, putting all that money into 2 players, you spread it out, and depth is so important. So it's a nice job by Vancouver spending their money with a purpose today.
All right, Frankie, we had an interesting trade as well early on Free Agent Frenzy. It's one nation's capital trading with another nation's capital. It's Jake Chychrun going to the Capitals in exchange for defenseman Nick Jensen and a 2026 third-round pick. Chychrun had 16 goals and 30 assists in 94 games with Ottawa after being acquired from Arizona last March. He has 1 year left on his current deal at $4.6 million per season. Should also mention the Sens added David Perron, a 2-year deal at $4 million a year. So that's a nice bit of business there for Alan Walsh. David Perron is a noted Alan Walsh client. So Steve Staios, Frankie, said he had a number of offers for Chychrun. Do you like the one he took from the Washington Capitals?
Yeah, Jay, I don't mind it. I never could get behind this notion that you just had to move Chychrun just for the sake of moving him. Like, you still needed a defenseman to play on your team. So Chychrun, who's a pending UFA, you move on from him and you get something in return. And that something is Nick Jensen, formerly of the Washington Capitals, who still has this year, next year on his deal, and makes about $600,000 less than Jakob Chychrun. And he's a right-handed shot defenseman, a guy who can kind of munch a lot of minutes. So, and you get a pick for it. So yeah, it's not exactly what you paid to get Jakob Chychrun, but you can't look at it that way. Like, this is a different regime, it's a different market, whatever you want to call it. I think the Sens did a good job to move on from Chychrun and bring in a defenseman that helps them and fills a need for the right now in Nick Jensen.
And, you know, Steve Staios also confirmed on Monday that Shane Pinto has not requested a trade. So that's interesting. We're going to continue to monitor that situation. But I actually want to ask you about Washington. What do you think about the fact, you know, they pick up Pierre-Luc Dubois, now they've got Chychrun. They're obviously trying to remain competitive as Alex Ovechkin winds down his career. Do you like that move from the Caps?
Yeah, and there's been a few moves, right? Mangiapane, Matt Roy. So this is a team that kind of talked about how they wanted to retool. And Jay, I find so many teams throw that word around so easily. Like, yeah, we're just going to retool. You know how many teams have gone down that path and completely butchered it? But with the moves that they made, like, it feels like it's something that they actually could do. Now, a lot of that is going to be contingent on, can you get the most out of Pierre-Luc Dubois? Like, does he actually want to play on a night-to-night basis? But as far as the other moves go, Jakob Chychrun, quality defenseman. Matt Roy, quality defenseman. Both guys are going to play in your top four, and Andrew Mangiapane brings a lot to the table. So Washington quietly did a nice job here so far in this free agency period.
And, of course, we have to compare Alex Ovechkin's late-stage career to Sidney Crosby's late-stage career because the Penguins were surprisingly quiet on Monday, Frankie, though they did add Kevin Hayes over the weekend. That's a nice move. But are you surprised as Sid enters the final year of his contract that the Pens maybe didn't do a little bit more?
Yeah, it felt like this would have been a good year for the Penguins to just throw everything at it. Like, How many more kicks at the can are you going to get here? It feels a little underwhelming. And here's the thing, like, there was certain markets that were there for the taking. Like, if you wanted defensemen were there for you. You're going to have to pay a premium. It was a little thin in the center market, so if you were looking there, like, you were going to have to pay a lot, and you might not get exactly what you want. There was a lot of wingers available out there. So it is a little strange that the Penguins, given where Crosby and that core is at, and, you know, you're just not going to get so many more kicks at the can there. They were a little quiet in Pennsylvania.